What's good, guys? Welcome back to another video on 8 Count. This weekend, we've got a really stacked UFC fight night with Kattar taking on Emmett. And in this video, I'm going to be giving you my picks for the top 3 fights at the top of the bill. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comments down below. Let me know who you think is going to win the main event and why. And subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. Let's get straight into it, guys. So, the main event, Kattar against Josh Emmett. I think this fight is kind of a fascinating one in terms of, you know, you look at both guys, they've had their hardships in their career, they've had their ups, they've had their downs. But I think they're both really coming into their own now. I think you look at Kattar, the Max Holloway defeat must have been really devastating for him, to kind of find out that, he wasn't on the level of Holloway on that night, and Holloway put a really bad beating on him. But to come back and show the sort of desire and determination in the sport like he has, with that massive win against Giga Chikadze, I think it just speaks volumes about the guy. And I think the same for Josh Emmett. Obviously, he's had, 2 defeats in his career and they both come inside the octagon. And they must have been disappointing ones for him. But, since that, he's been on a hell of a run. Yes, he had the 1 defeat in between. But you look at some of the opposition he's fought and how he's beaten him. He's been super impressive. And I think for both of these guys now, they're kind of in a position where, this fight isn't going to give him a title shot. But this fight puts him in a position for a fight which will no doubtably, end up with a title shot. And for me, I think both guys are quite close in kind of, skill level. I think you look at Kattar and I think you can say on the feet, he's definitely the more established of the two, and he probably has more weapons there as well. But I think you look at Emmett and you look at his wrestling ability, matched with some of the striking he has, and he's definitely a contender for a reason in this UFC featherweight division, which is, just massive at the moment in terms of quality from top to bottom. For me, I think you're going to look at Kattar in this fight and, I think he's got to use the jab. I think he's got to use those sort of weapons to kind of, maintain distance between him and Emmett, who is such a good wrestler. I think the jab's going to be really important because I think it's going to set up a lot of other techniques for him. And for me, I think Kattar has one of the best jabs in the UFC, and, his hands in terms of the UFC, he's got some of the best hands in the featherweight division. I think the pace of this fight is going to be really important. And for me, I think it's Kattar who's going to look to really try and pull it on Emmett and make him fight at a higher pace, because I think he looks at Emmett and Emmett, a lot shorter than Kattar. But in terms of size, he's a lot bigger when it comes to this featherweight division. And I'm wondering if he's, looking at if he can't get an early finish, maybe he can target the sort of gas tank of Josh Emmett. I think, he's going to have to back Emmett up because he cannot allow Emmett to have the center of the ring and kind of push the action and decide where he wants the fight to go. I think it's going to be all about who's controlling the center of the ring. I think, if Kattar can, dictate the range and kind of force Emmett into some bad sort of takedown shots, and, Emmett likes to mix up his striking and his wrestling, so he's going to have to be wary about the overhand coming off a takedown feint. But I really do think that Kattar could potentially force Emmett into making some, crucial mistakes. You look at Emmett on the other hand, and he's really good at mixing his striking and wrestling together, whether that faking a strike and going for the takedown, or vice versa, faking a takedown, going for the overhand over the top. I think that sort of skill set, it's been one which has been kind of dominating MMA since the start of times, really. The wrestler with the big overhand is a kind of thing we've seen before. But I think Emmett is definitely an evolution on top of that. I think his striking in general is a lot better than just to say he's a wrestler with overhand. I think his left hook's a really good punch for him as well, and he packs a lot of power in his strikes. For me, I think he's going to be focusing on closing the distance quite early. I think Kattar does his best work when he is the guy on the front foot and he's the one leading the dance. So I think, he might have looked at that Holloway fight and go, Holloway took that away from him and he didn't look too special, so maybe Emmett can do that. I do wonder what sort of movement Emmett's going to bring, because I think that's going to be important, especially if Kattar is able to push him up towards the fence. I would like to see what sort of movement he's going to be able to use to, potentially get out of those sort of positions. But for me right now, I do look at Kattar as the favourite, but something's telling me Emmett's going to get the job done. I'm going to go with Kattar win here. I think he's going to get potentially a late stoppage, something like round 4. I do think it's going to be a tough fight to start with, and I think, if Emmett can, use the wrestling and potentially posture up and land some devastating strikes. I think he could be, in front of the steering wheel for quite a while. I do think you look at both fighters, and for me, Kattar's got the better gas tank, and I think he's better down the stretch as well. So I'm going to go with a Kattar win here by 4th round TKO. But I do think it's going to be a really close fight, and I don't think you can go wrong picking either guy here. Be sure to let me know down in the comments down below who you think is going to win that fight and why. We move on now to Donald Cowboy Cerrone against Joe Lauzon, in a fight which is, kind of an interesting one. That's meant to happen a while ago. Obviously, it fell off. I can't really remember why it fell off, but it did. But this is an intriguing fight, and I think, for Cowboy, you can't be looking at this fight as an easy win. I think a Cowboy of past years potentially could have, but now I don't think so. I think, this is going to be a sort of testing fight for Cowboy at this stage of his career. I think, how quick can Lauzon start is one of the questions, because I have no doubt that Cowboy's going to start slow, because he always does. But it's going to be important to see how long it's going to take him to kind of find his rhythm. I think the techniques you're going to be seeing Cowboy using is, a lot of kicks, I think, is going to be part of the strategy for him. I think Lauzon definitely has underrated hands on the feet. He's a veteran now in the sport, and he's been beaten on the feet, but he's never really looked like someone who's shocking with the hands, and I do think he does have underrated hands. I think, if he can force Cowboy to be the one going backwards, and he can get on the inside of Cowboy at times and really take away the kicks of Cowboy, which is such a big weapon of his, I think he can have a lot of success there. Even with the hands, obviously he's going to be looked to initiate the grappling sequences, but I think with the hands on the inside, if he can, kind of crash into the range of Cowboy and take away the kicks, I think there could be success there for him. I think, we know that Lauzon is going to be looking to initiate some sort of grappling sequence. I think whatever happens, though, he has to be really careful, because I think Cowboy is so underrated off his back. I think, some of the stuff he can do there, you look at the submissions he's pulled off over his career, I think Lauzon does have to be wary of that. And I think Lauzon has to be wary of takedowns himself, because I do feel like there's a possibility here that Cowboy looks to initiate the grappling. Yes, Lauzon is, very decorated on the ground, and, he's no joke, but I do think potentially with Cowboy potentially being able to kind of pass the guard, maybe have a bit of success of his own on the top. And I think some of the damaging strikes Cowboy could land from there, and some of the submissions, I just got a feeling that Cowboy might be able to lace up some sort of choke here. I'm not too sure what's going to happen, but I'm currently, on the side of Cowboy here. I do think Lauzon starts quick, and I do think he catches him off guard quite a bit, and I think he causes Cowboys a bit of trouble, halfway through round one. I do think Cowboy does get some success on the feet, and, possibly could finish Lauzon there, but I think of later fights, I haven't been too impressed with Cowboy's work on the feet, but I do think he does get sent on the ground, and I think it'll be quite a shock, but I do think Cowboy's going to win by submission here in round two, which is crazy, because, against a guy who's so good on the ground like Lauzon, it's probably crazy to say Cowboy submission, but that's just what I'm feeling right now. The last fight I want to talk about on this card is probably the most intriguing one for me in terms of matchups. We're going to be talking about Tim Means versus Kevin Holland. For me, I think this fight is a really fun one. I think since the move down for Kevin Holland, there's definitely some really intriguing and really fun matchups here at 170 for him. That he's going to have to start quick in this fight, because, the dirty bird, dirty by name, dirty by nature, he's going to look to start the fight quick, in my opinion. So I think it's going to be, important for Holland to be able to be, quick off the mark and get right into his sort of rhythm, as I said, with Cowboy. Because I do think Tim is going to come out early and look to force Kevin Holland back. I think, in the striking, I look at Tim Means as more of an older style sort of fighter. I don't think his movement is necessarily great. He's quite static, I guess you could say, compared to someone like a Kevin Holland. And I think he's going to have to, you know, he's going to have to be aggressive, Tim Means, to have some success in this fight. And for Holland, on the other hand, he's going to have to be dynamic. His movement's going to have to be really explosive, like his striking, and he's going to have to try and catch Tim Means, you know, in some awkward sort of positions. I think if Tim Means is able to kind of get, you know, make this fight dirty, get on the inside of Holland, use the jab at times to, you know, come into the distance, but then maybe use his elbows on the inside, I think he could have success here. I think, you know, like I said, Holland's movement for me makes me hard to believe that's necessarily going to happen, because I do think his movement is probably too good for Tim Means to be able to kind of stalk him down. I think, you know, you look at other opponents that Tim Means has had success against, it's not usually someone like a Holland who's able to move with such freedom. I do think, though, if he can, you know, potentially tire out Holland and we see a bit more of a gassed Holland, maybe that comes more into effect. I do think, you know, Holland's movement is going to be a really big issue, though, for Tim Means. The one question I do have is Tim Means able to wrestle Holland against the fence? I think we look at the losing streak for Holland up at 185 pounds, and that's probably the biggest takeaway. His weakness, you know, defending the takedowns against the fence. I guess you could argue that sort of point with, you know, wow, he's obviously not built for 185 pounds, and his opponents were much bigger and stronger than him, which is a fair point. But I do wonder, would Tim Means be able to have some success there? Tim Means on the ground, not a lot of people talk about his ground game, but I do think it's solid enough. I think, you know, at times he does make mistakes there, but I do think he could have success there against Kevin Holland. I'm going to pick Kevin Holland to win this fight, though. I'm going to go with a decision. I think Tim Means is potentially just too tough to finish. I do think he's going to have a lot of success, though. I think, like I said, I just don't think the speed of, you know, Tim Means is there to really disrupt the sort of rhythm of Kevin Holland, and therefore I do just think it's going to be a difficult night for Tim. I hope he does have some success though, because I do think if he could have success in this fight and kind of give it to Kevin Holland, it would make it out to be a really interesting one. So yeah, guys, those are my picks. I'm going to go with Kevin Holland decision. I'm going to go with Cowboy Cerrone second round submission, and I'm going to go with Calvin Kattar with a 4th round TKO finish. Let me know your picks for those fights in the comments down below. If you did enjoy the video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of the upcoming content. I know we've got a big boxing match this weekend, Beat Trieb against Joe Smith Jr. I'm not going to be doing my sort of pick for the fight, but if it's a good enough fight to give a reaction to, I'll be sure to do that next week. Obviously, I'll have the reaction for this fight next week, as well as my picks for the week's UFC fight night coming up after that. But yeah, guys, like I said at the start of the video, I do have a video out already on the channel, my reaction to last week's UFC 275. If you want to go check that out and leave a like, that would be awesome. Until next time, though, guys, I'll see you later. Take care of yourselves. All right, peace out.